A blessed day, classmates, and welcome to our next discussion. For this lesson, I'm going to discuss to you Chapter 9, which is entitled The Air and Air Pollution. So as I have discussed already to you the different topic for the previous chapters, and we already introduced to you, what are the different types of pollution, and even how to protect, or even introduced you already the different environmental protection laws here in the country. And as we discuss also the other chapters, from the introduction until chapter 7, chapter 8, now we have learned about or discussed about the ecosystem, the biomes, and we also include some of the factors that affecting now those things, or let's say the ecosystem or the environment. And one is what we call pollution. Now, to be more specific, let us try to understand what is all about air and then air pollution. Okay? And as we all know, air is one of the component, or let's say characteristic of planet Earth that sustain now, or one of the reason why we live or can survive in this planet. Okay? That's why it's also important to understand the air. And also, my dear classmate, when we talk about air pollution, this is now one of the most most, or let's say common type of environmental problem that we are facing here in the country, as well as on the other countries, or let's say globally. So globally speaking, air pollution is one of the most common type of problem that we are facing, or environmental problem that we are facing. So let us proceed on the next slide. So what are the things that we need to know, or what are the things that I'm going to discuss to you in this lesson? I'm going to present to you a quick review on the layers of the atmosphere, and also the air pollution. So what are the types, maybe categories, etc. In line to air pollution, and also the health effects of some major air pollutants, or basically when we talk about air pollution, there is always there are always health effects or health risks of this air pollution. So I'm going to present to you those things, and also other informations or related information that how can we control, or at least control now the air pollution here in the country and even in the other countries, or globally speaking. Now let us now proceed with our definition of terms. So this is our basis or foundation for our discussion this topic or this lesson. So first thing, let us define what is atmosphere. So atmosphere is defined as the envelope of gases surrounding the Earth, or we are more familiar with the term shield, or let's say protection of our planet when we talk about this atmosphere. But in scientific definition, we can say that this is an envelope of gases surrounding the Earth. Aside from the atmosphere, we also have what we call pollution. So pollution is the introduction of contaminants into the environment that cause adverse change. So any kinds of pollution, air pollution, water pollution, land pollution, and other kinds of pollution, as long as we have there what we call contaminants. So introduction of contaminants, that is actually our keyword when we talk about pollution. And what else? We also need to learn about or know what is all about health. So health is defined as a state of being free from illness or injury or physical or mental condition. So that is our keyword is state of being free. So free from those different kinds of illnesses, injuries, maybe physical or mental conditions. And the last one, definitely we need to go back again on the definition of air. So air is defined as the mixture of gases comprising now the Earth's atmosphere. So later on, as I present the quick review on the layers of the atmosphere, let's try to look at those different kinds of gases that is present or commonly present in the air. So layers of the atmosphere, I know that you have heard or you learned already this one during your lower grades or during your high school, even senior high or maybe elementary. You already know about the atmosphere. And just for me to check if you still remember about the layers of the atmosphere, let me ask you, my dear classmate, how many layers of the atmosphere? Or ilan ang layers ng atmosphere? Please write or type or encode your answer there in the comment section or chat section of our GMeet conference. Okay, so I can see there a number. Your answer is 7, 5, 4. This is only a quick review, my dear classmates. So some of you answered 5, some of you answered 7, some of you answered 4. Okay, when you talk about layers of the atmosphere, for me to remember this one easier, or for me to familiarize the layers of the atmosphere, I came up with my own mnemonic. So it's up to you if going to follow, or you can also have your own mnemonic, or you can create also your own mnemonic. So I have there, Tom sells milk tea in Erwin. That is actually my mnemonic. Again, Tom sells milk tea in Erwin. Okay, so Tom, that is the first letter is T, troposphere. We have cells, S, that is stratosphere, mesosphere, which is M, milk, and thermosphere, T, N, and in, ionosphere, and we also have exosphere. Okay, so again, Tom sells milk tea in Erwin. That is my own mnemonic. It's up to you if you're going to follow or create your own mnemonic. Now, my dear classmate, you answered there 5, 4, or 7. When you talk about layers of the atmosphere, there are actually 4 major. Take note, 4 major layers of the atmosphere. But then, the last layer, which is thermosphere, is actually divided into 2. And divided into 2 layers, which is the ionosphere and exosphere. That's why sometimes your answer is actually 5. There are 5 layers. However, when you talk about major layers of the atmosphere, there are only 4 major layers of the atmosphere. Please don't forget that one. Okay? And let us try to look at this simple diagram just to review again the composition of the air and then the atmosphere. So as we all know, when you talk about the air, it is made up of the following gases. The most abundant type of gas, as we all know, we have there nitrogen, which is 78% present in the air, and we also have 21% oxygen that we are breathing, and it serves us for us to survive, and the other percentage, or 1%, and at most 1%, is actually the other gases, like for example carbon dioxide, sulfur, etc. And the air makes up now the atmosphere. And when we talk about atmosphere, it is divided into 4 major layers, which is troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, and thermosphere. So let us try to look at simple details on the different 4 major layers. Let's start with troposphere. Troposphere is the only layer with weather, or where is the occurrence of weather and as well as climate. We can also find there different kinds of clouds, etc. Okay? And we also have stratosphere, which is above troposphere, which contains now the ozone layer, or where we can find and locate now the ozone layer. And as we all know, when we talk about ozone layer are protecting us from the harmful radiation coming from the sun. Okay? So, and other kinds of details, or other details for stratosphere. And above stratosphere, we also have mesosphere. So the common thing that we remember when we talk about mesosphere is that this layer is where meteors burn up. Not only meteors, but as well as other extraterrestrial objects or materials. And an example, we have the meteors. And it's also a very good layer wherein it is actually protecting us from these different kinds of materials or object coming from the outer space. Okay? And above mesosphere, we also have what we call thermosphere, which is divided into 2. So thermosphere, from the term itself, thermo, that means heat. Now in this layer, basically there is extreme temperature and pressure, and as well as the presence of different elements and ions that we can find in this particular layer of the atmosphere. And again, thermosphere is divided into 2. We have ionosphere and exosphere. So for us to remember it easier, when we talk about ionosphere and exosphere, from the term itself, when you talk about ionosphere, that is inside already, or let's say the entrance, or let's say when we enter the atmosphere, the first part or the first layer, when we enter the atmosphere from the outer space, that is what we call the ionosphere. Aside from the yes, maybe if you heard about ions, maybe ions are also present in the ionosphere, as well as the different elements that we can find actually in the ionosphere. And exosphere is actually the boundary between outer space and then the atmosphere of our planet Earth. Okay, so exit. Now, before we exit on the atmosphere, we have what we call the exosphere. Okay, so that is how you remember when you talk about exosphere. But nevertheless, my dear classmate, both are having this characteristic of extreme temperature and pressure, as well as presence of the different elements and ions that we can find there. Okay, so that is only a quick review or a quick details on the 4 major layers of the atmosphere. We can have other details or important details if you go back again, no? Try to go back again on the informations or the discussion about these layers of the atmosphere. Okay, but for now, that is only a quick review, and this is also our basis on our discussion this lesson or this topic. So as we all know, again, no, atmosphere is one of the characteristic of planet Earth which sustain now, or why we have or why we are surviving in this planet. Okay? That's why it's really important for us to understand what is all about the air. And as we all know, again, now take note that air pollution is one of the common type of environmental problem that we are facing during this time. Not only during this time, but even for the past years, no? Air pollution is one of the, let's say, #1 type of environmental problem that we are facing here in the country and even globally. Okay? Because of these different kinds of sources, no, of air pollution, or what causes now the air pollution. So when we talk about air pollution, there are two different types of sources, no, sources of air pollution. So there is what we call a point source and a non-point source. Okay, take note, point source and non-point source. So let's start with what we call point source. From the term itself, point source, now we can point out, we can easily identify the source of this air pollution. Okay? Or we can easily locate. Now it is actually we can determine in a single place, or let's say in a close, no, in a close type of place, or let's say a close area where we can identify which is the source of this air pollution. Okay, so easy to identify. What else? A single place, or let's say in a confined or close place. So for more detail, or in a simple description, now we can say that any contaminant that enters the environment from an easily identified and confined place. What are some examples? We have there oil refineries, paper mills, fossil fuel industry, and other kinds of factories in industries. Take note again, point source, we can point out, we can identify this single type of source of air pollution. Okay, so for example, in your community or maybe on your own province, let's say the only source of the air pollution is the oil refinery factory, and that is what we call a point source. However, if you're going to ask me, sir, what if there are more than a source of the air pollution, and there is already a combination, no, of the sources of air pollution. Let's say, for example, you have already the smoke coming from the car tailpipes, the smoke coming from the factories, and then we also have different kinds of industries and even the burning activities of humans. That's the time that we can call it as a non-point source. Okay, so take note, no, non-point source is not easily identified already, but these are pollutants released now in a wide area. Okay, so it means that this is more applicable to a larger area or wider area, or let's say most probably in a city, or maybe in a large city or in a large area, no? Because there's a lot of sources of the air pollution, and we cannot really say that the only source of the air pollution is the car tailpipes or maybe the smoke coming from the factories, because it's already more than the car tailpipes because of the different sources of the air pollution, and that is what we call non-point source. Okay, so source of pollution, the rate of emission, the wind, location or topography of that particular city or maybe that community or that area is affecting now these different kinds of non-point air source pollution, or source for air pollution. Okay, so example, again, we have the car tailpipes, factories, and power plants. So there's a mixture, there's a mixture in combination of the different sources. So in a single place or in a single community, we cannot really say that the only source of the air pollution, let's say for example Baguio City, or let's say Manila. And Baguio City or Manila, we cannot say that the only source of air pollution is from the smoke coming from the car tailpipes. That's not already a non-point, no, because if that is the single, or we can identify that the only source of air pollution is the car tailpipes or smoke coming from the car tailpipes, then that is already what we call a point source. But since this area or this city is composed, or the source of air pollution is more than more than the car tailpipes, and we have a lot of factories in industries, power plants, etc., that is what we call a non-point source of air pollution. Okay, so non-point source, and we also have what we call the point source air pollution. So please don't be confused on point source and non-point source. Now let's now proceed. Aside from the sources of air pollution, when we talk about air pollution, what compose now the air pollution is what we call the air pollutants. Okay? And when we talk about air pollutants, there are two different types or kinds of air pollutants. We have what we call primary, and we also have what we call secondary air pollutants. So when we talk about primary air pollutants, those are the air pollutants that is directly, or let's say released directly into the air. Yan, so it's directly combined or mixed, doon sa atmosphere or into the air. So either in a natural process or maybe in a human activities or because of human activities. What are some examples? Examples, we have there carbon dioxide from the burning fossil fuels or maybe other kinds of burning activities. What else? Ashes from the volcanic eruptions and other kinds of examples that will have na what we call yung primary air pollutants. Okay, so now question, sir. What if those carbon oxides and other kinds of ashes and other kinds of gases are mixed together and combined together? That's the time that we can call this one as not already a primary, but that is what we call a secondary air pollutants. Why secondary? Because it is formed from the different kinds of primary air pollutants. So combination of either two or more primary pollutants. And take note, since this is combination or form from the primary pollutants, we can say that this is more harmful compared now to the primary pollutants. Okay, so from primary pollutants, more harmful, and some example, a very good example is that what we call the photochemical smog ozone, or sometimes it is only termed as ozone or described as ozone. So ano yan, sir? What does it mean when we talk about photochemical smog? I don't know if you have heard before, but let me try to explain. The photochemical smog ozone or the ozone was formed from the primary pollutants, specifically this one. Look at the picture. We have there the sunlight, and plus the nitrogen oxide plus volatile organic compounds. What are those volatile organic compounds or VOCs? Compounds that is containing carbon. Yan, carbon basically, from the term itself, organic. Example, we have alcohol, methane, what else? Acetone. Those are types of VOCs that will combine now to nitrogen oxide, and it will result now to what we call ozone or a photochemical smog ozone. And if you have been into city, or let's say in a maybe in a large type of community or large community, or let's say in particular to city, or cities, yan, let's say during the lunchtime until 3 p.m. and let's say there is a hot season, yan, or it's very hot during that time, you can actually observe, if you observe or if you notice this one, if you're walking outside, or let's say in the middle of the day, you try to look onto the atmosphere, and there is a certain part or layer of the atmosphere or above, in the air, there is a certain grayish part or colored gray part that is actually a formation of what we call a photochemical smog ozone or an ozone, because there is already a combination of the different air pollutants or primary air pollutants. Yan, so that's an example. I don't know if you have noticed, but that is actually observable. If you are observable on what is happening around us or in our environment. So that is an example, and that is what we call the photochemical smog ozone, or also known as ozone. Okay, and not only that one. When we talk about this photochemical smog ozone, it is actually more than the nitrogen oxide plus the volatile organic compounds. Sometimes it is actually more than those kinds of compounds or elements. And so again, take note that secondary pollutants is formed from the primary pollutants, and primary pollutants are directly released into the air, or this is basically we can identify the sources or the single type of elements or maybe type of gases that is directly combined into the air, or released into the air. Okay, so that is what we call the primary and the secondary. Before I'm going to proceed now on the next slide, let me ask you if you are still there in the GMIT conference. Do you have any questions or clarification so far? Let me check if you are still there. Please type 1 if you are still in the GMIT conference. And very good. Okay, so I can see 1, 1, 1. Alright, so let's now proceed on the next slide if you don't have a question. So aside from these types or kinds of air pollutants, we can also categorize air pollutants. So if you are wondering, no, we are going outside, yan, and then we are also staying inside our home or inside our room or inside a building, there is also a categories. Now, there is what we call an indoor air pollutants and an outdoor air pollutants. Okay, so let's start with what we call outdoor. When we talk about outdoor air pollutants, so basically this can be get now from the outside. Yan, so outside, outdoor, and here are some different sources now of the outdoor air pollutants. We have a very good example. You have their combustion of fossil fuel, or let's say the common source of the outdoor air pollutants. We have the combustion of fossil fuel, so carbon dioxide, and from the burning of fossil fuel or combustion of fossil fuel, carbon dioxide, maybe monoxide, sulfur, and other kinds of gases, or toxic gases, or let's say greenhouse gases. And airborne pathogens are considered to be an outdoor air pollutants. Example, you have their dust particles and dust mite, maybe also. So same, a little similar to dust particles. So dust particles or dust, infectious microorganisms. Yan. So bacteria, yeah, microorganisms, no? Dust particles, or let's say what we call the airborne pathogens. What else? Particulate matter. Yan. Maybe a liquid, or liquid matter, or let's say yes, liquid or particulate matter from, let's say, from sneezing, yan, maybe from the different buildings, or maybe in a certain type of a place or environment, there is a presence of this kind of particulate matter, yan, either liquid or maybe a solid or maybe organic material, etc. Those are what we call a particulate matter. But more common, or let's say it's common when you talk about the particulate matter coming from the sneezing or coughing and from a person. Good thing, no, during this time that we are suggested, or we are mandated to wear our face masks as we go on because of the because of this COVID-19, yeah, or this virus that we are facing, or this pandemic that we are facing during this time. Okay? And you also have what we call the photochemical smog, definitely, no, because this is again formed outside. Okay, so photochemical smog is an example of an outdoor air pollutants, and the ozone depletion or ozone destruction is triggering, or let's say one of the contributor now to increase the rate or percentage now of the outdoor air pollutants. And you also have acid deposition or acid rain to be considered as one source now of the outdoor air pollutants. Why? Take note that when you talk about acid rain, we do have a lot of combined elements, or say toxic gases or toxic elements in that particular type of rain. No? Although when you talk about the different biogeochemical cycles, when you go back again on the discussion regarding the sulfur cycle, now we know that is actually a natural phenomena or natural cycle already, and one of the result of the sulfur cycle is what we call the acid rain. However, take note that there is also different levels now of the acidity of the rain, or let's say the different levels or contain now the combined elements to this particular precipitation or rain. That's why sometimes it's very harmful if we have this kind of acid rain, because let's say for example for more than 1 month, or let's say for a month, there is no occurrence of precipitation or rain, and then suddenly there is a raining or precipitation, occurrence of precipitation, definitely we can expect that there is a harmful effect of this acid rain, or there is a high level of the level of acidity, and as well as yung toxicity of this acid rain. Okay, so that's why again it is happened outdoor, so definitely, or outside, it is considered to be a source of the outdoor air pollutants. So aside from the outdoor, now let us try to look back on the inside our room, inside our house, inside a building. If you're wondering why we need to maintain the cleanliness inside our room, under the table, under the bed, because there are what we call an indoor air pollutants. Okay, so what are some examples? Ayan, very common. We have the dust mite or maybe dust particles. Okay, so very common. And we also have ETS, or also known as the environmental tobacco smoke. Why is it considered to be an internal air pollutant? Because the effect, we are breathing in, we are breathing in the tobacco smoke. Okay? And as we all know, when we talk about the smoke coming from the tobacco or from the cigarette, it contains a lot of toxic gases, or let's say greenhouse gases. The presence of nicotine, what else? The presence of carbon dioxide and other more. That's why it is considered to be an indoor air pollutant. Again, take note now, don't be confused on the ETS. We are breathing in, that's why it is actually indoor air pollutants. Although, if you try to look at the characteristic of the ETS, it is also served or considered to be an outdoor, maybe because it is done, or the action of the ETS or the smoke is actually coming outside. But the thing, the effect of the indoor air pollutants, or what we are actually doing, is that we are breathing in yung tobacco smoke. That's why it's indoor air pollutants. And we also have the volatile organic compounds. Again, we have, or VOCs. I have mentioned a while back an example. We have their acetone, alcohol, methane, and then propane. So alcohol, we have been using alcohol, especially during this time. So still, as we use the alcohol, there are still some gases that is releasing this type of compounds, and the acetone as well. So maybe a few of you, my dear classmates, or maybe some of you ladies are still using this type of let's say a liquid material, that the acetone is called acetone, that can be used for cleaning the nails. Again, take note that there are still some gases that is been released from this particular type of VOCs. Okay? And that will definitely considered to be a source of what we call the indoor air pollutants, or serve as, or known as the indoor air pollutants. And we also have combustion products. Petroleum oils, petroleum, oil, diesel, etc. And other kinds of combustion products. And we also have what we call chlorinated chemicals. So we have the carcinogens and methylene chloride that is used in paint and thinner. So this is more applicable to those new building, or let's say a newly painted building or room, etc. As we breathe in, or as we breathe in the especially the smell coming from this paint or thinners. I don't know if you have experience, but sometimes if we smell this kind of fragrant or smell coming from this paint and thinner, sometimes we feel uncomfortable. So sometimes it will result to headache, or maybe allergic reaction, etc. Or maybe mild sneezing, etc. So that is again considered to be an indoor air pollutant. And we also have asbestos. I don't know if you have heard about the term asbestos, but this is also known as a fire retardant, or a fire resistance type of a chemical that they are applying particularly in a building, or let's say in constructing house, or maybe constructing a building. So they are applying this one in the wall, or maybe in the woods. And I don't know if they are also applying it in metal, because this is one good type of chemical that is used during this time, even before, but more particularly during this time, to avoid, or to at least resist the effect of the fire, or maybe if there are some incident or cases that accidents, fire will going to occur inside the house, at least we have what we call the asbestos to at least lessen, or to resist now this effect of the fire. And here are some different common type of sources, and then even considered to be an indoor air pollutants inside our house, or inside our home, or inside our room, etc. So no wonder, why do we need to maintain the cleanliness inside the house, or inside a room, or inside a building? Because of this some reasons, because we have what we call the indoor air pollutants. So no wonder also, my dear classmate, that sometimes people or other individuals are getting sick, let's say asthma or other kinds of allergic reactions, because there is what we call the presence of the indoor air pollutants, even though we are inside our house or inside our home. So please go over knowing those different kinds of indoor air pollutants sources and then considered to be indoor air pollutants. Yan. So it's no reason already, no, my dear classmate, just for us to be reminded again to maintain cleanliness, and not only in our room, not only not only in the kitchen, but as well as any part, or say all parts, no, of our home or inside our house or maybe inside a building. Yan. Especially when we talk about the comfort room, yan, or the bathroom. So you can see there an example, like for example, you have personal hygiene products, you have aerosols, sprays, yan, yung mga ginagamit natin na pampabango inside our comfort room or inside the bathroom. Those are also a source, no, of what we call indoor air pollutants. And molds, spores. Yan, ito pinaka-common kapag talagang hindi nyo nililinisan yung comfort room or bathroom. No? So again, it's a very good reminder to everybody to be aware on those different kinds of details, or when you talk about the indoor air pollutants. So please go over with this picture later on. Again, maintaining the cleanliness will really prevent these types of indoor air pollutants. Okay? And now let's try to one of the such important part, no, of this discussion or topic when we talk about the health effects or risks, no, of the air pollution or the major air pollutants. Yan, so we have there the picture. You can already see, no, some of the effect or health effect of the air pollution. And let us just break it down, or what we call this one. Let us try to enumerate, no, one by one. So common thing, we have respiratory illnesses. Yan, example, we have asthma and bronchitis. And what else? Headache and fatigue, and even mental impairment. Yan, because of these different kinds of air pollutants that we can breathe in, or maybe we can get it outside or either inside, no, a building or inside our house. Okay, we also have irritations. Yan, eye irritation. This is very common outside, no? Especially if the wind is really there is dust, no? What else? Maybe other kinds of microorganisms that is combined in the wind or in the air. Yan. Sometimes we have what we call eye irritation, respiratory irritations, chest irritation, and other irritations from the other parts of the body. And allergic reactions. Yan. So we have what we call the common type of allergic reaction. When we talk about air pollution, we have what we call the allergic rhinitis. Yan. So this is will occur when we have what we call, if you have an allergic to dust, yan, dust particles or dust mite. We also have, if you are allergic to what we call the fur, no, from the animals, yan, that is still part of what causes now yung allergic rhinitis. And even we have, yan, different air pollutants outside or inside our house. And not only that one, when we talk about temperature and even humidity, I think that is one also reason why we have what we call the allergic rhinitis. I don't know if you have experienced, my dear classmates, that during the early morning or maybe during the evening, now let's say it's cold and you experience let's say you have consecutive sneezing, no, at least around the three consecutive or more than 3 times that you sneeze already. That is one reason, or maybe you can say that you have an allergic rhinitis. Okay, so most of the time I experience that one during the early morning or maybe during the evening, particularly if it's very cold, no, kapag rainy season or kapag talagang malamig, yan, we can have what we call yung allergic rhinitis. Okay, and we also have lung cancer or lung disease and other vascular diseases. So again, take note, we are breathing in those different kinds of air pollutants. That's why it's no wonder why we can have this kind of health effects or health risks, no? And we can have what we call breathing problem. Okay, like for example asphyxiation, or maybe even we can be sophisticated, no? Or you will be suffocate, no, in these different kinds of, or because of the air pollution. And last part na tayo, mga classmates. So aside from these health effects or health risks, there are still a lot, no, actually, of health effects or health risks that is not mentioned in our PowerPoint, but these are some of the common health effects or risks because of the air pollution. Or maybe because of the outdoor and indoor air pollutants. Okay? And we also have ways, no? So I'm going to present to you some ways on how to control now the air pollution. Number one, in this modern time, and even during the start of 21st century, we have already what we call advanced technologies. No? Example, we have electrostatic precipitators, fabric filters, and scrubbers. So what does it look like? These ones. Yan. So it's like a filtering technologies, filtering technologies or filtering devices that can separate now the toxic gases that will be released outside the or in the atmosphere into the air. So that is like a filtering device or filtering technology. Later I'm going to show you the inner structure of the scrubbers or this type of technology. And aside from these technologies, we also need to have a careful land excavating activities. Take note, sir, bakit napunta sa land? Take note that when you talk about the land surface or underground, there are still a lot of gases that can be released if we do have what we call land excavating activities. Okay, so that's why during landslide or during soil erosion or there's occurrence of soil erosion, there's also a release type of gases, particularly when you talk about carbon dioxide. Yan. Common yan, my dear classmate, in other kinds of gases that can be released on the surface or on the land surface. That's why we need to have a careful land excavating activities. What else? Careful handling of petroleum products. Yan. So, yung mga combustible type of products aside from the petroleum products, no? So, careful handling. Yan. Because if you're not careful, definitely it will lead to an accident or maybe to fire incidents or accidents. Yan. What else? Following or abiding with the law or the RA 8749 as an example here in the country, or also known as the Philippine Clean Air Act. In general, now we need to follow or abide or comply with the law to control now the control now the air pollution and other kinds of environmental problems. No, not only air pollution but other kinds of pollution. But the fact or the reality will always reflect what is happening in our society. Take note that not all are abiding. There are still some of people or individuals who are violating these kinds of laws or policies that is being implemented to control these kinds of pollution. Example, yung ating air pollution. Okay? What else? We also need to have an eco-friendly activities. Yan, tree planting program, eco walk, yan, or maybe cleanup drives. Those are some examples on how to control now the air pollution. Yan. And good thing also during this time that it's not already allowed to burn garbages or trash in our backyard. So that is a big no already during this time. So if you're going to do that one, you will face a punishment or that is already a violation on an ordinance or policy or law in our country or maybe in your particular province or community. So that is a good thing actually. Because as we all know, when you burn plastic materials or those garbages, it can release definitely a lot of toxic gases or greenhouse gases. Not only plastic materials, but even the organic materials, organic or inorganic materials. Examples, dried leaves and branches of trees. Those are actually still releasing different kinds of toxic gases. Example, yung carbon dioxide. Yan, pinaka-common, my dear classmate. So, organic materials are not also suggested to be born in our backyard. Or again, take note, we cannot really say that it's fully implemented or it's not fully monitored. Yan, because there are a lot of isolated places or provinces here in our country that is not being monitored. Yan, so that is the sad reality. Especially those isolated provinces or places here in our country. So they are still burning this kind of organic materials, but one of the reasons maybe they are not aware or they don't know the effect of this kind of burning this kind of organic materials or even yung inorganic materials. Okay, so not only plastic or different kinds of plastic materials. And that is also one of the reasons why they banned also the use of, they are banning actually the use of plastics and even yung use of the use of styrofoam, because it is also releasing a toxic gases once you burn this kind of materials. Take note, we need to have an eco-friendly activities. So be responsible. Now let's go back again on the term good and responsible citizen. Yan, for us to control the air pollution. Even in our simple acts or simple set activities that we are doing inside or outside our home, please be reminded again on those what we call eco-friendly activities, especially when we talk about burning activities. Okay? And even yung smoking. Yan. Okay. And this is now the structure of these scrubbers or the filtering technologies that I am talking a while back. So this is now how it looks like. So just for you to have a knowledge, in this particular type of technology. So there is a certain part wherein there is a gas particle separation. Yan. So it's really a filtering technology. In fact, in some other countries, they have already what we call carbon collectors. And carbon collectors, example, artificial type of branches of trees or maybe leaves of trees that collect now the carbon or the carbon dioxide. But then take note, not all countries are having this kind of technology, and they are still enhancing or improving or developing this type of technologies, yung carbon collectors. But other advanced technological countries or highly developed countries are having already this kind of technologies. Okay, so this is not the problem. Again, when I talk about these technologies, not all can afford and not all have this kind of technologies in the different industries or factories, especially here in our country and even the other countries. So hoping that in the future or maybe in the next years, most of the countries or maybe all should have this kind of technologies to at least control or to contribute now on controlling the air pollution. Or there's an importance to know or understand about the air and the air pollution. Okay, so look at what is happening around us, and this is one of the common type of problem or environmental problem that we are facing. And that's it, my dear classmate. If you have any questions or clarifications, you can always post that one in our Canvas or maybe in our group chat. And I'll see you all on the next chapter or in the next discussion. Stay safe, take care always, and then God bless everyone.